Good morning, everyone. Today I wanted to give you a quick flip through and review of Rod and Staff's first grade arithmetic. So if you're interested, keep on watching. This is the teacher's manual. It brings one teacher's manual for the entire year, and it has two student texts, student workbooks. Workbook 1 brings lessons 1 through 85, and then workbook 2 brings lessons 86 through 170. You can also buy a speed drill book that you do every other lesson. I don't think it's really it's not going to make or break it if you don't have the speed drills, but it is extra reinforcement. But it's so thorough that you probably could get away with not doing the speed drills because it has so much repetition every single day of their basic math facts. But if you want maybe a challenge, or your child loves a challenge, that could be something that you could do. But anyways, so it comes with this teacher's manual. The teacher's manual has everything laid out for you. So it has, what you're going to do that day. So these are the lessons right here. It has what you need to have with you before the lesson. So it tells you the materials you're going to need. If you want to write anything on the chalkboard, it tells you beforehand what to put on there. And then it's really scripted. Like, you don't have to come up with anything. It's all there laid out for you. And then they have the workbook page, exactly how it looks in the student text. So this is lesson 34. So this is how it's going to look in here, and it gives you the answers on there. Tells you what to say, what to tell them, and then it has extra drill and follow-up if you would like to do that with them. It has the speed drill answers up here. So it's pretty straightforward, and it has some Bible verses that you can, go over with them. This is how the teacher's manual looks. And the way they teach addition is that they teach them through houses. So, for example, for the 6th house, it would be, the addition facts would be 0 plus 6, 1 plus 5, 2 plus 4, 3 plus 3, and then they flip them. And so they learn the facts that way. So this is something that you could start at the very beginning with maybe a kindergartner, because it starts at the very beginning. So if your child had no prior knowledge of, any math facts or anything, they'd be fine starting this, because it starts at the very beginning, just teaching them how to write their numbers correctly and neatly. These are between numbers, which one is more, which one is less. And it starts out very simple, and I debated on getting this for my son because I was like, he's way past this, right? But it kind of helps them start learning independence. And it's just extra reinforcement and really solidifying those math facts so that when they get to older grades, they're not having to count on their fingers to do higher level math. And so that they have a good, strong foundation in arithmetic skills. So that is how the first workbook looks. They do money counting. Like I said, more fact houses. They start, and this is how they introduce word problems. So they tell them, Tim has 3 dips. How many dips does he have? 3 dips. Tim has 2 cats. How many cats does he have? 2 cats. So they teach them to read a sentence and then pull out what they need for their problem. And then later on, Jim fed 5 pups in the pen. How many pups? 5 pups. So learning to extract from the problem what is actually needed to solve the problem. And I really like that because, you when you get to those longer word problems, you need to know what information you actually need from the problem. Like, you don't need everything that's there. Just pull out what you need, like right here. 7 cubs play. Then 2 of them ran away. How many cubs are left? So how many cubs? 7 cubs. Then 2 cubs ran away. So minus 2. How many are left? 5. And they go over temperature. They go over all the place values. So circling the ones, circling the tens, the hundreds. They teach them the number names to recognize them, kind of by sight, because some of these don't follow phonetic, the phonetic rules, like 2 or 1. So they teach them to learn those by memory. And then it has fractions in here. They learn to count by 2s, by 5s, by 10s, by 25s. So all that is in here. I really feel like this is a solid curriculum that you can take your child from first to, up until they are in high school, because it's a curriculum that it's not going to leave your child with gaps. They have some measurement in here, pints and quarts. So like I said, there's enough repetition in here to where you probably could skip the speed drills, but it's a good extra. And one thing that I like that, because you could say, oh, I'm just going to buy the workbooks, right? I don't need the teacher's manual. But it actually has, for example, yesterday I did lesson 110 with my son. And so it tells you here, like, they have this is all that's listed for them to do that day. But tomorrow, or the next lesson, they're introducing measurements, which my son already knows, like I said. But, they're introducing it the next day, so they have you go over it the previous day. So right here, it tells you, hold the ruler, show the ruler to the child. A ruler measures inches. Count with me. And, it tells them 1 inch, 2 inches, and then this says the arrow means start here, and then, so it gives you a scripted lesson. And, or for example, here, it tells you to set the clock. So if you have a model clock, you don't need one, but it would be helpful probably, It tells you to set the clock to these. So it's something that's not in here, but you are doing with the child, and it really helps to solidify those concepts, like set the model clock at 1, 5:30, and then they have to, tell you the time. It has some fraction problems that you can do with them that's not in here, like I said, but it's something that you're doing on the side just to solidify concepts with them. And so it does have helpful teaching instruction in here that I think is very valuable. And I think, especially with a subject like math, I feel like you really need to hit those. You really need something that's going to build a solid foundation, because what you don't want is getting to, 8th grade, 9th grade, and your 9th grader is having to count on their fingers, or doesn't know like place value, or doesn't know how to tell time. And so now they can't do their problems, their higher level math problems, because they're tripped up on basic arithmetic. So I feel like this is a very solid curriculum, and it will leave your child with no gaps. My oldest, I pulled her out in 4th grade from public school, so she did first through 3rd grade in public school. And would you be surprised? She had a lot of gaps. And I didn't know much about curriculum, so I put her in master books for 4th, 5th, and 6th. And I can tell you that it did not do what I was expecting it to do. And I didn't know much about curriculum, so I didn't, do a whole bunch of research. I just kind of, picked what I thought was the best. I had a lot of gaps coming from public school because, you know how they are. They teach a concept, and if everybody didn't understand it, it doesn't matter to them. They move on to the next thing, and they're not going to sit there with your child and sit one-on-one and, make sure that they're, have every concept down to a T. So when she was coming from public school, she had a lot of gaps. And so I tried to fill in those gaps as best as I could. Like, she didn't know basic place value or telling time, or, basic arithmetic. She hadn't had a strong foundation in it. And then on top of that, I put her into master books for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And I guess it did what we needed it to do during that time, because she needed something gentle that wasn't going to overwhelm her, while we still, filled in those missing gaps that she had with other, supplemental materials. Like we did some Khan Academy, we did some flashcards. I got some, like a lot of manipulatives, like, fraction blocks and all kinds of different things, like to teach her place value and time. I had to go back and, teach her those things. Long story short, pretty much master books to me is not a solid curriculum where it's going to teach every concept to mastery. They kind of teach one thing and then they jump around to another thing. And then there's like a random story in there that has nothing to do with the lesson. And so there's a lot of fluff, and there's a lot of curriculums out there like that they're cute and they have all this stuff and games and manipulatives and all this pretty much junk, and they don't get the job done. And so I feel like your child, even if your child is a struggling learner or if they're gifted in math, I think that this could go both ways. Like I said, after we did master books, I put her into Rod and Staff for the older grades, and she did great. And she's not typically she's not really what you would call gifted in math, but she was able to understand because their math is so, methodical and very, it's very easy to understand. There's not a whole bunch of extra fluffiness in here. So I really recommend Rod and Staff for math. I think it's not very wise to jump around curriculums, to be curriculum hopping when it comes to math, because the way one curriculum company teaches, a concept is not the way another curriculum company is going to teach it. And if you're jumping around, you're going to confuse your kids. And it's just better to stick with one throughout all their education. So that's what I'm planning on doing with my children, is using, for my younger ones, is using Rod and Staff from 1st through 8th, because I think it's solid. I think it has all the teacher help that you need. I mean, this is 1st grade math. It's not really complicated, but it gives you ideas on how to teach it in case they're having a hard time, and I haven't run into any issues. They also have some things back here that you can photocopy onto cardstock paper. They have the addition facts that you can copy like this. So just for them to practice and go over. I started doing it and then I didn't because my son already knows them, but he doesn't have a hard time with it. But like I said, these are affordable. I think they are $7 a piece for the workbooks. And then the teacher's manual is, of course, reusable. You can reuse it with your younger children if you have multiple children. And so I also really appreciate, somebody else might say, it's, kind of boring. But I appreciate that it's black and white because there's no busyness on the page. Like, they can just focus on what they're doing. There's not a whole lot of color, especially if you have easily distracted learners. And so they're just getting to, and the instructions, it's kind of intuitive. It's pretty intuitive. So if you're also a busy mom and you don't have time to be sitting there, like, this is something that your child can open up and already know what to do. There's no instructions that they have to read. It's kind of like, they know what they're doing here. They're doing addition. They put this here so they can know that they're circling the one that has more. And so they can start doing this early in the morning while you're, cooking up breakfast or something. They can get this done pretty independently. It's something that they, what number comes before, what number comes after. It's pretty self-explanatory. So it gets the job done. So I highly, highly recommend this. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to ask me in the comments below. Thank you.